Forms is where most beginning students get a little bit confused. So just to reiterate, a shape is flat. It's a 2D object. So a shape has height and it has width. When we talk about forms are 3D. They have volume to it, or mass. So it's height, width, length for a form. So it's a 3D version of a shape. So most forms have a flat shape version of it, like that cube over there. The flat version is a square. If you look at a cylinder, the flat version of a cylinder, if you crushed it, would be like a rectangle. So most of these have a corresponding shape. A pyramid would be a triangle, for instance. We're going to be doing 7 basic forms, and I should tell you that these are also geometric forms. So they're based off of geometry. So technically it's kind of related to math. I know that's kind of scary to think about, but art does have a connection to math in some ways, and this is one of them. So you do need to make sure that you can see more than one side. That's happening on this cylinder. You can see both the top and the side of it. You do need to curve the bottom of the cylinder. That's important. The pyramid, you can see 2 sides. The sphere that's looking like an oval or an egg, you can't, but you're going to do that with value. Just like with the geometric shapes, these all have individual names. So there's a cube, a cylinder, pyramid, sphere, ring, another sphere, only this time it's a circular sphere, and cone. So there are more than this, but these are the basic ones that we use pretty consistently. So these can be found out in nature and also out in our man-made world in the form of desks and cups and other objects that we have. Oftentimes these are kind of hybridized to make a different form, like a lampshade. Okay, to start with, we're going to begin with what's called a cast shadow. You may have seen me kind of outline this with pencil because I put the outline there first. The thing about the cast shadow is I want to make sure that the light source is all the same for each one. So I'm envisioning the light coming from the left side of the object, which means that the shadow is going to be to the right. So it's on the right side. And they're all kind of leaning the same way. So a cast shadow is a shadow cast by the object itself onto the ground plane. And when I say ground plane, that really means like the tabletop or whatever surface the object is sitting on. And I'm using a mixture of kind of like blacky blue there. You could use a different color, but it should be a darker value. And I'm just using the same color for all of these cast shadows. The cast shadow does kind of take on the shape of the object, so you can really see like on that pyramid, it looks kind of like a triangular shape there. Okay, and then we're going to go in and we're going to be painting each one. So here's the thing, this is not like doing the shapes. This is much more complicated. So for the cube, for instance, the cube needs to be darker on one side, lighter where the light's hitting it, and kind of a mid-tone on the top. So there needs to be a dark side, a medium side, and a light side, all within that same color range. What that means is on that cube, I went darker with the yellow on the dark side. I also added a little bit of brown to it. On the top, I let it be more of the pure pigment. To the left, on the left side, I watered down that pigment. So on the cylinder, I went with the form shadow first, and I'm painting kind of in this up and down vertical stripes. And I filmed this with my phone, so it keeps wanting to focus on my hand rather than on the actual paper, but you can kind of see that. I decided to go a little bit darker or brighter purple on the top and lighter on that left side. These don't have to have a whole lot of value, but they should at least, bare minimum, have 3 different values. So my dark side stays consistent for each form. So my dark side's always going to be on the right next to that cast shadow. So really what that's called is a form shadow. That dark side of the object, that's your form shadow. Form shadows tend to be softer and more gradiated compared to a cast shadow, which tends to be a little bit more crisp. So on that pyramid, I really just did maybe 2 colors, but here on this egg-shaped thing, I want to point out that I curved my stroke. I wrapped it around that egg. See how I'm going in a curve there? That's really important to suggest form. And it needs to go from dark on the right slowly into the light. You can think of it the other way around too. So it's slowly going into darkness. It needs to be a smooth transition though. You want to suggest that idea of it being round. Think of a mass. Think of how that object would actually look in person. That ring, I couldn't help it. It had to be kind of a donut in my mind. So I went with donut colors. You don't want to forget that indent is a place where the light has a hard time traveling to, so it's going to be a shadow shape as well. And again, the direction of your stroke is important. You're trying to describe the form. So I'm using a curved stroke to wrap around that object. You can see I'm doing that. I'm curving it. And the light side, again, is on that left side. I added a little bit more yellow there. And then it slowly moves into shadow as it moves towards the right. Same is going to be true of that sphere. See how I'm working in that kind of crescent shape with my stroke? You need to do the same. It's important that you suggest or describe that form. It's like a crystal ball. And this is a form I use all the time when I paint. This form can be found in the human face. So can that donut shape, by the way. There's an indent kind of near the cheeks that looks like a donut. All right, and then the last one is the cone. You can see I'm articulating that form shadow side, which is dark, and then as it moves to the left, it's going to get progressively lighter. Now these forms, they don't have to be perfect, but I would like to see a shadow side, and I would like to see kind of a mid-tone side and a light side, depending on the form. Like the pyramid, you only can really use 2 colors, apart from the cast shadow. But on some of the others, you need more than 2. As with the others, you do need to go ahead and give them each their own label, and it is specific so that you have the cube, you have the cylinder, you have the pyramid, you have the oval-shaped sphere, it's technically a sphere, ring, and then you have the circular sphere, and then last you have the cone.